Okay, so next up, you would now be solving and drawing for the Leeward pressure diagrams. So earlier, we have already solved and graphed the windward pressure diagrams, and it would now look like this. So next up, Leeward. Okay, so for the leeward pressure diagrams, you would still be making use of the same equation. However, guys, some values will now be changed. Okay, so for the value for CP, actually this is the main difference from the windward and leeward. That is the value for CP. So for the value of CP, guys, so take note here that we are now to consider a leeward wall. Okay, so for a leeward wall, so for the value of CP, it is now dependent upon this ratio, which is the ratio of L over B. Okay? So unlike a while ago that for windward walls, all values, or as long as it is windward, we will be making use of a value of CP equal to 0.8. But for leeward, it is now dependent upon the ratio of L and B. When we say L, this is the length along the direction of the wind of the wind. And when we say B, this is the length perpendicular, so or normal to the direction of the wind. Okay, so in this case, guys, in our building here, if we are to assume that the wind will travel from this direction to this direction, it means that 10 meters is the the length along, and 8 meters is the length perpendicular. Okay, so from that, in this particular equation, nasa na yun? In this equation, here, I should say here, the value for L, let me just erase this since I think you already understood it, and if not, replay nyo na lang yung video. So for the value of L in our case is 10 meters, whilst for the value for B, that would be 8 meters. So getting the ratio, so 10 divided by 8, so 10 divided by 8, that is 5 over 4 or 1.25. Okay, so as in here, if your ratio is from 0 to 1, you would be making use of negative 0.5. If let's say the ratio is 2, you would now be making use of negative 0.3. However, 1.25 is neither 1 nor 2. It is actually somewhere in between. So I think you already know what you would be doing next. What you would be doing next is that you would be interpolating them. Okay? So you could use manual interpolation. However, since you're already watching this video, you could actually make use of a calculator technique for stat mode. Okay? So again, you could interpolate manually, but since you're already watching this video, so let us make use of stat mode. So what you would be doing is that you would be going to stat mode. So that is mode 1. So this is for cars calculator, or this is actually very similar to the Casio calculator. So if you have a Canon calculator, hanapin nyo lang po yung stat mode. So in my case, that is mode 1. So not mode 1, I should say mode 3. Mode 3. And from that, guys, I would be going to the linear. And from that linear, that is 2. So in some calculators, I think in Casio nakalagay doon linear ata. I'm not sure. So just mode 2, as long as you you get a stat mode with 2 columns. So what I would want to do here, is that I would be assigning this as my x-axis, and I would assign this as my y-axis. So if I would be graphing them, if x is equal to 1, let's say that this is 1, the y is equal to negative 0.5. Sorry, let me just erase this. So again, so if x is equal to 1, 2, wait lang, 3, then 4. If x is equal to 1, the value for CP is equal to negative 0.5. If, let's say, the value of x is equal to 2, the value of CP is equal to negative 0.3. Then, if, let's say, the value of L over B is greater than or equal to 4, the value for CP is equal to negative 0.2. So, if I am to trace them, it might look like this. So, my next goal, since the value of L over B is 1.25, what I want to know is what would be the value of Y if, let's say, x is equal to 1.25. So, I want to know what this is. So, from that, guys, in my calculator, what I want to do is that I would be inputting here everything that I already know. So, I know that if x is equal to 1, I know that the value of CP or Y is equal to negative 0.5. And I know that if x is equal to 2, the value of Y is equal to negative 0.3. And if the value for the ratio x is equal to 4, the value of Y is equal to negative 0.2. Okay? So, now that I already have these values, I would just be pressing AC. So, after pressing AC, I would be going to stat mode. So, in this calculator and in some Casio calculators, that is shift 1. But for Canon, you actually have here for Canon, and I think for Casio 991 EX, I think. For those calculators, you have an apps button at this location, apps button, okay? So, as long as you go to the stat mode, and once again, in my case, that is shift 1, stat mode, I would be going to regression. So, number 5. 5 regression, I would be going to 5. And since I already know the value of x, I want to know what the value of y would be, okay? And I would be searching for y caret, and in that case, that is 5, okay? So, upon pressing 5, I now have this y caret here. What I want to do is that I will be inputting the value of 1.25 here. So, what this means is that if the value of x is equal to 1.25, what is the value of y? Okay? So, upon pressing equals, the value of y is equal to negative 0.4339. Okay? So, from that, the value of CP, if L over B is 1.25, the value of CP is equal to negative 0.4339. Okay? So, in this case, as you know that 1.25 is actually somewhere here in between. So, 1.25 and negative 0.4399 is actually somewhere in between. So, if you are having doubts in this solution, try solving for it manually. So, if you have trust in me, then ilagay nyo na lang po. Okay? So, after that, for the value for CP, that is negative 0.4339, and it would be the same throughout. Okay? However, guys, if you would be going back to this table, it is indicated here that this value for CP, whatever we will be solving, must be used with the value for QH. Okay? So, meaning that in this previous equation, this QZ must be QH. That is why I erased these values here. Okay? So, from that, guys, the value for QH will be, so again, this is the value for QH that we have solved for earlier, that this is now 2007.26. Same throughout. Okay, then from that, I will be assuming a negative GCPI first. So, solving for it, so that would be, so 2007.26 times G of 0.85 times CP of negative 0.4339. So, by the way, guys, I'm just solving for the answer here. So, I'm just solving for the answer here. So, times negative 0.4339 plus 2007.26 times negative 0.55. Okay? So, that would now give us an answer of negative 1844.3. And as you know, guys, that all of these values would be the same as well as for all of these values. So, meaning all of the pressures here will be the same. So as you can see in the calculator that this is now the answer. So negative 1844.3, and that is constant throughout. And from that, guys, this is now what it would look like. So negative 1844.3, take note, a negative value means that it is a suction, I should say. And from that, it must be directed away from the building. Okay, so next up, what about if let's say that the value for GCPI is to be positive. Teka lang, bakit hindi positive yan? So suppose that all of this would now be positive. So for the value of CP, still same, that is negative point for ano na yun? For I forgot actually. So if the value for nawala pa yung aking solution. If the value for CP is negative 0.4339, so again, negative 0.4339, and the value for GCPI would now be positive. So I would just be deleting this negative symbol, and from that, the answer is now 363.685. So 363.685. And as you can see, guys, this is now a positive value. So from that, guys, this is now a positive value. And a positive value means that it is a direct pressure. It means that it is pushing the building from the outside. Okay, so in that case, this is 363.685. So if ever that the value for GCPI would be smaller, I think this should be negative. Okay? So, bakit po? Kapag kunwari, for example, guys, that if ever that we chose this building not to be partially enclosed, if we are to go back here, kasi nga di ba ito partially enclosed, what if, for example, that in our computation, hindi po siya partially enclosed, rather it is enclosed. If this is enclosed, which is 0.18 in this case, nasan ba yun? So as you can see here, 0.18. In this case, once again, this would still be negative. So meaning, guys, instead of us having this, kapag negative po sana yung sagot, it would still be directed towards the right. But then again, as per our computation here, it is positive, meaning that it is pushing the building from the outside, or it is considered as a direct pressure. Okay, so that is for leeward walls. So as you can see that this is the windward and this is the leeward. This is for positive GCPI. But in the event of negative GCPI, so negative GCPI, this is now what it would look like. So this is for the negative GCPI for windward, and this is for the negative GCPI for leeward. Okay, so last up, what about for sidewalls? So for sidewalls, guys, this is rather easier than that of the other two. So for the sidewalls, the value for CP that we will be using would be negative 0.7 regardless of the value for L over B. So from that, guys, straightforward. So this is, ano na yun? Negative 0.7. Oh yeah, okay. So that is negative 0.7 throughout. But take note that as per indicated here, that we will be making use of QH and not QZ. And from it, hindi po QZ gagamitin natin. Rather, everything would still be QH for everything. Okay? So, this is for, ay positive ba to? Meron bang pang negative? Ito pala, this is for negative GCPI. For negative GCPI, again, get rid of the QZ. We are only particular with the QH. For the CP, that is negative 0.7. And solving for the value. So from that, guys, so 2007 times 0.85 times negative 0.7. Then this is plus 2007.85 times negative 0.55. So with to 7.26, I should say. And this is 2007.26. So the answer here is to be negative 2298.313. So it would be the same throughout kahit na i-try nyo pang isolve isa-isa. So kahit magsuntukan pa tayo dito, pare-parehas lang po yung mga sagot ng yan as long as this would be the same. So as for the positive GCPI, the thing that you would do is just that you would be making this positive. Okay? So for that, just change this to a positive value. And from that, this would now be equal to negative 90.327. Okay? So again, this would be the same throughout. Kahit magsuntukan pa po tayo dito, pare-parehas po yan. Okay? And from that, as you can see from the figure, guys, for the sidewall, tinan nyo yung difference ng figure natin, guys. So this is from the leeward and the sidewall. Triangular po yan. But for the sidewall, guys, naging rectangular. Why is that the case? Because for the sidewalls, in order for us to project it, we are now to look at it at this direction. So kumbaga nakatayo na po tayo sa kalsadang to or sa sidewalk na to, and we are looking at it at this direction. And from that, the triangle a while ago will now be looking like a rectangle at the side. Okay? And from that, guys, this is what the sidewall pressure would look like. So this here is for negative GCPI. Ito po. So as you can see, negative value meaning that it is directed away from the building. And for a positive GCPI, the value there is still negative 90.327. Negative value indicates that it is directed away from the building. Okay? So again, pare-parehas po yan. If meron pong answer na iba, then meaning that your answer is incorrect. Or let's say that, for example, that in your pressure here, for your pressure here that is negative 90, then for the other cells, baka iba yung nailagay mo. Mali na po yun if you are to consider our principle here. Again, pare-parehas po yan kahit magsuntukan pa po tayo. So from that, guys, I hope that you will learn something, and that is it for today's video.